start with, I think the point has to be made that taxes and levies, no matter the reason for the imposition, are not pleasant. And everywhere in the world, there has been some apprehension about the imposition of taxes and levies. That's a fact. Now, this particular situation is worsened also by sloppy communications from the government. Its communicators have not communicated well and has added to the burden of government. See, when a measure like this is introduced and public servants or members of government who everybody knows don't buy petrol make statements to the effect that, oh, we are ready to sacrifice one cedi, we'll buy the petrol, we are ready to sacrifice one cedi for the good of the country, it annoys the population. So bad communications is part of the problem. And then there's also the problem of preparation for the announcement. The government should have known, the Ministry of Finance should have known that its opponents will capitalize on this and make the most of it. So this measure, before its implementation, should have been introduced to the public, it should have been discussed to some extent, and before the announcement, the official announcement itself, people ought to have understood the context within which this levy was being imposed. Now, it hit people with a jolt. And as soon as it was introduced in Parliament, members of the opposition, the minority, decided to make capital out of it. They walked out, created a whole lot of drama and so on, and miseducated the public on the levy. So it has been handled very badly. We must admit that it has been handled very badly. Now, for me, I find something exceedingly interesting. People who were in government, who raised petroleum prices to 16 cedis.
Went as far as 23 and 20.
Let's keep it at 16, forget the 23. Who raised it to 16 cedis are complaining when measures have been put in place to reduce it by 5 cedis. Incredible. Where is your moral authority? They have no moral authority to be complaining. You understand? They didn't do better. They did worse. So on that basis alone, I'm sitting back and watching these minority MPs, walking out of Parliament and say, what's wrong with these people? What do you do given the opportunity? As a matter of fact, perhaps if they were in government today, the price would have escalated to 30 cedis or more. So they have no moral authority to be making the kinds of statements that they are making today. Besides, this levy would have become completely unnecessary if the previous government had not tinkered with OSLA, the energy debt recovery levy. They wasted it. They used it as collateral to go and obtain loans, and we don't know how those loans were spent. The energy sector debt is growing. In fact, as of yesterday, I'm told that the energy sector debt now has reached the level of 3.1 billion.
3.8.
Well, whatever you 3.1, 3.8 billion dollars. That's how
it's still more than what we went for the IMF.
That is how much we owe. You understand? In addition to this, government needs at least another 2 billion, close to $2 billion to be able to import the necessary fuels to keep our power plants running. So we have to make a decision. Either to shut down electricity completely so that we don't have electricity, so the industry collapses, so the social life collapses and so on, or some measure is introduced which would make it possible for us to continue to receive electricity.
Thank you.
So we have this minority people complaining about doomsday and then saying that don't take any measure to improve doomsday. How is government supposed to improve this doomsday situation if it doesn't generate resources from somewhere? The important thing is that the resources which are generated to deal with this doomsday matter should not impose further hardship on the people. So a combination of all the measures should lead to the alleviation of hardship. You understand? Petroleum prices are climbing down, and they've gone down by about 5 cedis already. And the speculation is that they could still go down. One, because of the lowering of inflation and the cedi gaining strength. And yesterday the cedi was trading at 10.3 or so to $1, climbing down from 17 cedis to $1 to a 10.3 to $1. And the speculation is that the cedi's value will continue to strengthen to such an extent that this 1 cedi levy would not lead to an increase in the price of petrol. What are they complaining about? They should come and tell us what they are complaining about. What are they complaining about? What is it that the minority is complaining about? And they've managed to send, some level of disinformation among the people. This one, when I was driving to the studio, I was listening to radio, and truck drivers and taxi drivers were complaining. We've just reduced prices. What are we supposed to do when the price of fuel rises again, and so on? Now, let me make the point very clear that commercial drivers, taxi drivers, and truck drivers are disadvantaged in our society. You should see their living conditions. Some of them cannot make their daily sales. They struggle to make their daily sales. They are constantly being threatened by car owners that they are going to take their vehicles from them. They actually go to Shylock money lenders to borrow money in order to be able to meet their daily sales and so on. So they are a disadvantaged group, and no further hardship should be imposed on commercial drivers. But the point I'm making is that this levy, as explained by the Minister of Finance and all those who were involved in taking the decision, will not lead to exacerbating the hardship of commercial drivers. You understand? To some extent, it will rather help all of us if industry booms. Those who operate the transport sector benefit. They haul all the raw materials and the finished products and so on. It's a benefit to the transport sector. If the power sector improves and industry booms, there's more employment for people, which means that more people will be using public transport and so on. If the power sector develops and doesn't have the kinds of problems which were imposed by the NPP administration and so on, healthcare would improve. It is the benefit of commercial drivers, it is the benefit of passengers and so on. If you get an accident, you are likely to be given the kind of treatment which will save your life and so on. So that's the context within which we have to see this levy. But unfortunately, government communication this time was so very poor. So very poor. Government communication has been poor. The preparations for announcing the measure was not well thought out. It was poor. I don't know why this was considered a secret. It shouldn't have been a secret. This is a matter which has been debated, and so on. And whatever it is, it has come. And so we must manage it. I fully agree 100% with Alhaji Inusuf Hussaini and my brother Philip, that look, after the imposition of this levy, government has a duty to do, and it's not a simple duty. This account ought to be audited regularly to show that it is not being mismanaged. That's very important. The population ought to be convinced that the imposition of this levy has become beneficial for all of us. So the intermittent lights off must stop, and if it stops, it will vindicate this measure. You understand? And as Alhaji Yusuf Hussaini said, there has to be a certain level of efficiency in power production and distribution. These huge line losses that we are saddled with should go away. These technical line losses and so on should go away. And there are ways of doing that, you understand? So the levy has been imposed. It is the duty of government to demonstrate that it is beneficial. And it is not difficult to do. To do that demonstration is not a difficult task at all. It's a very easy task. Constant auditing, constant reports about the state of our infrastructural development, constant reports about the production of power and the efficiency that it comes with, and so on. That is what has to be done. And this opposition minority, demonstrations and walkouts and so on will come to nothing. The people of Ghana, if it's managed properly, will come to the realization that this is in their interest and they will embrace it in the long term.
Thank you very much.